Welcome today, everyone. I'm very excited about this topic, and the topic today is twin flames and soulmates. And I talked about it a few weeks ago. I posted it as twin flames and soulmates as the gateway to oneness. And of course, everything is the gateway to oneness, and embracing soulmates and twin flames is certainly a very beautiful way for us to remember our oneness, and is one of the primary pathways that help me to reach this state of living with all that is in every moment while being in the physical world. When I started talking about it a couple of weeks ago, it went to the focus of having relationships of any sort with your twin flame or soulmate on Earth. When we come into very close soulmate relationships, with twin flame really being a reflection of one of the closest soulmate relationships we could have, we tend to mirror each other in very clear ways, and sometimes that can add to a little bit of chaos in the relationships as we are learning more and more to live within love and unconditional love, and to be in that vibration in every moment. So that day, I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, or perhaps that was exactly what we needed to do, because I trust in every moment that we are aligned and doing what is perfect. So that one did sort of focus on the earthly aspects of using twin flames and soulmates as your mirror here on Earth. That's in the archives if you'd like to go revisit that. I wanted to bring the topic up again, but from a little bit more of a higher vibration, the observer self, the spiritual aspects of this union, which do not require that you are actually in physical relationship of any form with the vibration that would be known as your twin flame. So this is what I'm dedicating today to, is to kind of sharing my thoughts, my love, my experience with the twin flame vibration, and how the spiritual connection of that union is our gateway into oneness. Many of you have either read about or listened to me on the radio show, and you know that I journeyed with my twin flame, both in the physical world and now in the spiritual world. Actually, I shouldn't even say now in the spiritual world, because while he was here on Earth in physical form, a great deal of our relationship was actually dedicated to the spiritual union, to the communication that we were able to experience telepathically, and to working with our vibrations to assist ourselves in the journey of remembering, but also in assisting others. So that has carried on since he crossed to the spirit world 4 years ago. And the understanding and the remembrance of this, let me just take a moment again to give you a quick synopsis of what I perceive as the twin flame union, the twin flame relationship. And as you know, we are all one energy source. We are the source of divine love that moves through everything that is life itself, that is all that is. And in that, we are also these reflections of human beings, of souls that are walking among the earth. And we can conceptualize the idea that we are all energy, and that we are part of a greater force, and that we are all one. But to integrate that into our awareness, and to be able to say, yes, I am one, and there's another person over there that is looking pretty separate than me right now, is reflecting back a different aspect of that oneness, and I'm learning from that. And so in our human experience, there's the one journey inward in which we can go deep into meditation, and we can expand our vibration, and we can rest into that oneness through various levels of surrender. And we can feel that for moments in time as we rest into that vibration in a meditative state, sometimes in music, in dance, in various ways where we sort of lose ourselves into that oneness. When we're interrelating with other souls and we're actually seeing another person outside of ourselves, that is also a reflection of that oneness. We can have varied degrees of remembering that. We can connect with a person and instantly feel like their soul family, like we've known them forever. There's something in the resonance of their voice, of their appearance, of the vibration they present, of the way they're thinking and speaking that we simply resonate with, and we remember that vibration is very familiar to our own. And there's various degrees of how that affects us in our lives as we get to know various soulmates. And so there is a whole spectrum of connection as we are remembering these sources. So the reason that it's been explained to me of how and why we feel that varying degree of connectedness with each other, and again, even as soon as I put words to it, we're limiting it, but we're human and we want to understand it from every perspective. So this is our human understanding of this perspective. So if we imagine that the oneness that we all are intended to expand its understanding, to love more deeply, to reflect upon itself more, it expanded itself into the Alpha and the Omega, not necessarily separating itself. The wholeness of the connection is still there. But as the Alpha and the Omega, the male and female aspects of God, begin to witness to each other, there's an expansion of love, just like we can feel love in our own centered space, but when we feel that reflection in another human being, it expands itself. That's why we like the human connection and the human touch. So in that similar vibration, the oneness expands itself into the Alpha and the Omega. That is our replica. That is sort of the spiritual mirrored reflection. So it's almost like they're showing me the pond, a reflection of a pond, and when we stand at a pond and we look in at our reflection, they look very similar to each other, and yet they're the opposite sides of that spectrum, the one being the water and the one being the body, but looking in the same image in that moment. So the Alpha and the Omega would be sort of that mirrored water reflection of a pond of what the twin flame vibration is here on earth. So as the one has continued to expand itself in its understanding, expanding all the way down into what we now see as individual souls, still remembering that we're cells of a whole being, a whole energy source. In this individual soul, there is the last vibration of the God center, the oneness that we expanded ourselves from before remembering our understanding of an individual soul. And that would then be the reflection of the Alpha and the Omega in human form. There was a time, and we are coming back to a time, where we did not expand to that extent, so that the souls that walked the earth were actually the full union of that twin flame vibration. So when we look back into history and times where we're looking at the pyramids and the ancient Egyptian times, we're looking at Atlantis, Lemuria, some of these times where we're saying, okay, it seems like as a human race, we kind of had a little bit more understanding and knowledge in the past. What happened? What happened is we wanted to expand even deeper into the understanding of the full spectrum of emotion, the full illusion of separation, so that we could come to the fullness of this remembrance and complete that cycle. So the twin flame vibration then is a part of us, and it's really just an illusion that we are ever separate. That illusion, though, can play on us very strong, and it's our remembrance of feeling that separation and aloneness from the oneness. So what happens now as we're coming as a human race to the ascension of our Mother Earth, we're completing this cycle, we're more and more coming into that remembrance that there is a wholeness to us that is beyond this alpha or omega energy here on earth. It's a wholeness in which we feel that complete union, and we can remember that connection then to the alpha and the omega and the oneness. So this can occur. You can, more and more souls are coming to earth and actually finding their twin flames, being in a dynamic with their twin flame on earth. And again, that can be in the whole spectrum of relationships. This is not a romantic expression necessarily. But again, if you're in that physical twin flame dynamic, there's the archive. You can listen to a lot of the dynamics of that. Let me talk about when we're looking towards this. And even if you are, I would like you to focus on this, because the only way to master that is to go to the spiritual level first. There are many souls that are that have connected with their twin flame, and the twin flame has crossed to the spirit world, such as I said with mine, and I know many other souls that it's happened to. And if it hasn't happened to you in this lifetime, it's most likely happened somewhere in your cellular spiritual memory. So this sense of grief that occurs when we feel that we are separated by the veil and not being able to connect with our twin flame vibration is inside each one of us until we face that. And that doesn't, it doesn't go away even if you don't have a conscious understanding of your twin flame on earth. It's sort of embedded in us. If you can imagine that feeling of just not feeling complete, wanting something more, longing for something more, I think that's why the whole romantic story of finding Prince Charming or your princess has been ingrained into our storyline for so many generations. And in fact, much of the fairy tales that we raise ourselves on is actually the quest to remember the twin flame union. Now we're actually starting to see some storylines of that remembrance occurring and the whole souls coming together. But this is a spiritual remembrance, and it does not have to be contingent on coming into physical connection with your twin flame, or your twin flame being in any specific form of relationship with you on earth, or even staying on earth. It can be done just by simply, here I say, going into meditation. And in a sense, yes, I am then kind of contradicting myself, because I'm saying if you go into meditation and you're remembering oneness through that space, it's sort of a linear one line, either the alpha or the omega energy inside of you. And what I'm saying now is there is a meditation, and I've offered that as a free download on my website, just to say that, so because I'm not going to have time to do that with you today. But if you go to the blogs on my website, you'll see where I've written about this, and then there's a link to a meditation that you can do every day. And if you do this meditation, and of course you only have to listen to it a couple of times, you have it within your soul to do it yourself. But if you can reunite with that concept of the whole part of you, the male and the female, the God and the goddess, the alpha and the omega, that completeness inside of you, not necessarily attached to any dynamic of a human form, but just simply this golden being of light that is in your heart and that you reflect outward and look at, just like God or God or all that is, Enchanted One did when it expanded into the alpha and the omega. This on a vibrational level helps to fill that sense of grief and longing that we sense that we are not whole and complete. And it's not that you have ever been separate from your twin flame. It's not that you are half of a soul. It's that you believe you are half of a soul, because you have experienced the oneness in an expanded form, where that soul, that other half of that wholeness, may be reflecting in another human body, or may be reflecting on the other side of the veil. So when you can come to this union and feel, because it's all about the feeling of this, the surrendering into the feeling. We cannot get to oneness with our minds alone. We have to let our hearts into this space. And when we do that, we begin to feel that wholeness again. We begin to remember that wholeness, and we begin to step into our power here on earth. And we understand then that it will shift everything, because you will be able to tap into your gifts more. You will be able to tap into your connection with the oneness more. It's your taste of feeling the oneness as you move and surrender deep into all that is. It's a little bit easier for us as humans to think of merging with the other half of our soul than the conceptualize of just sort of surrendering into this vagueness of all that is. Now, as we move up those layers and we understand ourselves more and more, we expand in that vibration until we can actually be living in that sense of oneness, feeling that full sense of oneness, having that awareness in every moment, while still being aware of our whole twin flame vibration, the God, Goddess that we are, being aware of our ascended being, of the higher self, and of our physical reality all at once, and being able to align ourselves and our attention to which part of that aspect of ourselves we wish to place our attention on in any given moment. So when we open our hearts to the twin flame, we remember that there is a grief inside of us. And I think that part of why I was called to the journey that I have taken, and in fact, I remember this journey more than once with my twin flame. There's other memories of coming to Earth and being separated by, or having the illusion of separation through death. And that grief that occurs when we believe that we have lost that connection. Now, my twin flame and I were actually quite aware of this union, had done a lot of this work together before he left his physical body. So there was a smoothness to this energy, and we merged before he left, and we continued to merge that energy with him on the other side. And yet there was a grief to that illusion of separation that it penetrated so deep into my soul. It was clearly a grief from the beginning of time, maybe not even only for myself, but as a reflection of part of that oneness streaming through as we all remember that. And so that sense of sadness and grief, and sometimes this vagueness of feeling that emptiness that people are experiencing. And it's interesting that we have what is considered a rise in, depression. And I don't know if we have a rise in depression or we just have an affinity to passing out antidepressants. But there's a sense that I do think, in a sense, that as we're awakening as a species, as we're becoming more and more aware and in tune with the vibrations, and if we don't have a context to understand it, it's very easy for us to feel an abstract grief, or to attach that original grief, the grief of origin of that first illusion of separation onto a particular situation. That isn't wrong, because especially if we can use that as a catalyst to release that. But on the other side of it, it's that remembrance, that resting into the wholeness and feeling complete down here on earth again. And it's interesting that I picked the topic for today. And I say I picked, and yet I know it's me in all that is, because I'm always fascinated, and I've said this before, when I pick a topic and it's put up on the screen for all of you to see, and then I watch to see how that plays out in my life over the weeks that approach that time. For me, over the past week, there's been a huge shift. Over the past couple of weeks, actually, there's been a huge shift. And in fact, being able to embrace various soulmates on earth who have been here to support and guide me through this time. And there's been an awareness since the 4 years ago, in the moment my twin flame had crossed to the spirit world, that a part of me crossed with him, that a vibrational piece actually crossed into that space. And when it first occurred, a few of my friends actually said I looked transparent, because my consciousness, obviously my physical body was still functioning fine, but my consciousness had in part crossed with him. So my awareness, my vibrational awareness was then split. And it's been a journey of being able to stay in that fullness of that union and the expansiveness and how that connects me to the oneness while integrating and drawing that into my body here on earth. And there was a beautiful, on the full moon, I did a ceremony with one of the soulmates in my life who's journeyed with me, and felt that final completion of coming in and fully feeling present here and with my twin flame and with the oneness in all of those vibrations at once. And it's been a series of building up to that place, but it's been a very beautiful moment, a shift within myself in which I felt that occur. And that was followed actually by me reading the book, The Barn Dance by James Twyman. And I had to laugh to myself because I was guided to look at that book. I actually saw people talking about it on Facebook, and I kind of went and explored what that was. And I read it, that it was about him and his ex-wife crossing and his coming to terms with that. And, you know, part of me was like, oh, that's the last book I want to read. That's way too close to home. And so, and yet I ordered it because I knew that I needed to. And in fact, my resistance to it told me that there was a piece of me still unhealed. And I had to smile because the day after the ceremony that we shared together, and I felt that completeness, and I really was, you know, telling friends, like, this feels like a birthday. I feel alive. And in the mail comes that book. And I chuckled to myself, and I actually sat down and it was on the weekend, and I turned over a whole day and read that book and felt that final integration. So I highly recommend that to people because I think it's a beautiful way of explaining it. But it's also that we don't have to know the terms. We don't have to know what's going on. Our soul can feel disconnected until we remember the wholeness. And that remembering the wholeness is in part remembering the fullness of our connection with our soulmates, our twin flames, and experiencing any grief of the illusion that we are not whole, and embracing that fullness back into ourselves so that we can be that reflection. And I don't think I'm getting the full words for this right now, because this is the first visual. This is the first time as I'm speaking to you right now that the oneness has shown me this beautiful imagery of this pond reflecting me, and the omega and the alpha in the pond, and me, and the omega and the alpha in me reflecting back at it. And so there's something in that imagery that is very profound in showing us the simplicity and union of this love. But it is exploring with each other, and it's exploring within, and it's knowing that we are connected and we have access to this vibration in any moment. We don't have to look outside of ourselves to feel this fullness. It is when we go inside of ourselves and we remember that fullness that all of the parts of our life begin to fall into place, and we can share that with others.